Plastic pollution has become a pressing issue in today's world with severe consequences on daily living. The excessive use of plastics has led to a massive accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, causing harm to human health, wildlife, and the planet as a whole. One of the most significant effects of plastic pollution is contamination of water sources. Plastic waste, including microplastic, has been found in oceans, rivers, and even tap water, posing a risk to human consumption, leading to the ingestion of toxic chemicals, which has led to many health problems, including cancer and reproductive issues. And so, on this episode of Frontiers, the focus is plastic pollution and its effect on daily living. My name is Frama Hanyi. Our guest is Dr. Michael Terungwa David. He is an environmental advocate and Africa Regional Coordinator, Citizens Climate International. Glad to have you join us on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Program continues shortly. Once more, you're welcome to Frontiers.
Thank you.
Now let's get straight into the business of the day. Plastic pollution. What are the most, significant sources of plastic pollution, and how can we address that?
Plastic pollution is one of the 7 planetary problems facing humanity today. The first being climate change, and then the second is pollution generally, but plastic pollution now comes in very strong. Globally, we will say that plastics, started coming into light since the 50s after the First World War. And all the plastics that have been produced since plastic was discovered is still within the environment. So we are talking about 8 billion tons of plastics being produced. Annually, we're looking at like 400 million tons. So just take for an example, a garbage truck, this normal garbage truck. Now, a garbage truck of plastics is being thrown into the ocean every 1 minute.
Wow.
That is so much plastics that we have within the environment. So the real issue is, where does plastic go? We say we are throwing it away, which is a major source, right? We go shopping, we buy all kinds of things, from our water bottles, plastic, from the plastic bag, from the pure water bag, from the styrofoam plates and everything. And then we throw them away, and it's like away in quote. Where do they go? They are still within the environment, either in the ocean, in our drainages, in the soil, and even when we burn it, it still remains within the atmosphere.
Wow.
So the sources are so numerous that the question to ourselves would be, how much of plastics have you disposed of since you were born? So what is your plastic footprint? You can ask yourself that question. How many plastics have you disposed of? So in simple terms, the source of plastics is from us.
Now, how can we address this plastic pollution issue?
It's a very big issue, and that is why, even globally, because we have seen that it's a problem that affects everyone, impacts the entire world. In fact, even in countries and areas where plastic is not produced, plastic waste in the ocean washes to those areas. They just wake up and they see tons of plastic waste on their beaches, right? And so there is the need for us globally to take serious action on plastic. And if you have a problem, and we know the cause of the problem, so the simple solution will be, let's stop using plastics. But is that really possible? It's a yes or no. So we can start gradually by reducing the amount of plastics we use, especially the single-use plastics. The ones we just use today and we throw away.
Okay.
You know, like the very dangerous one, that's styrofoam, the one the mama used to, you know, put food, like you just eat at once and it's out there.
Yeah.
You know, we need to start reducing the use of single-use plastics and then stepping up with recycling slowly, and then gradually we can let plastic off because of the problems it causes and the impacts on our health, on our food system, and our environment.
Okay. Now, what role do microplastics play in plastic pollution, and how can we prevent their spread?
So this is where the real issue is.
Okay.
When we throw away plastics, we assume we've thrown it away. It does not degrade. That is, it's not biodegradable. So it takes thousands of years. So the best case scenario is that it breaks into microplastics, and that ends up within the ocean. And I'm sure you hear of that World Bank report that said by 2050 we'll have more plastics in the ocean than fish, which is very true. So marine and aquatic lives see these small plastics in the ocean floating on the water, and they think it's fish, you know, and then they just gulp and swallow it. So it's killing a lot of aquatic lives, and we need them. It's a ecosystem. So every part of the system is important. When it ends up in the soil, it also inhibits plant growth, and that impacts food security. It's even very dangerous because it prevents water from infiltrating and percolating into the soil. So it also causes flooding in most cases, you know. So the solution to microplastics is simply that safe disposal. At the moment, we cannot do away totally with plastics. So what we have, we must dispose it safely. And that, for me, is the first solution. Yeah. The second one will be ourselves, consumers, right? Consumer behavior. So why do you need 10 bags when you go to buy 10 items in a supermarket? You know, you can have a good reusable bag that you can always, you know, pack all your items. When you pack all those plastic and polythene bags, what do you do with it? That's the question. You just trash it. The drainages become the source of waste disposal for many. So they trash everything there. So, but if you don't collect, you have nothing to trash, right? So we are reducing. It's a personal choice. I don't accept plastic bags when I go shopping. I don't. If I'm going, I have a bag, a reusable bag. If it's something very small, just hold it in my hand. And nobody's going to kill you. We will not leave the government out of this, because regulations must come in and should come in. So we must applaud first the Lagos state government, you know, by banning that styrofoam. Yeah, because if you look at the impact of flooding, you know, or the impact of plastic and flooding in Lagos, you see it. You watch the videos and it's terrible what you see. And it's all because of those styrofoams. You know, it's very unfortunate that even the big supermarkets or the big shopping malls and eateries are are guilty of this. You know, they pack these things and the people just drop them. And so we need the right regulations. In many countries, they've banned the use of single-use plastics. You know, so when you come shopping and you need a plastic bag, you pay for it. So a lot of people don't like paying, so they come with their bags, you know, and that is the starting point. You know, even water bottles, if you go to some other countries, when you see the water bottle, you only want to throw it away. You know, you buy it and you keep reusing it, you know, over and over. But the one we have here, you know, you just buy and then you trash. The worst one is a pure water bag. So we need a regulation that will reduce it, but it must be holistic. The last Ninth Assembly, made a law against the use of plastics, in the country. That bill was not assented to by the president. I believe that it is because all the stakeholders were not carried along, because a lot of companies are producing these single-use plastics. It would be bad if you just wake up today and say you are banning the use of single-use plastics in the country.
Sure.
You are going to create unemployment. There are people working in those places, right?
Yes.
People earning a living from there. So there should be a holistic approach so that, like we say, transition. You give a time frame when these companies will transition from producing, single-use plastics into, sustainable products, and then you can now put a hammer, because we actually need it. If we don't, we are all being impacted. Yeah.
Now, what are some of the common health challenges, or would I say health problems, associated with plastic pollution?
So let me group them into three.
Okay.
So health generally, we are looking at air, we are looking at food, we're looking at water. We will say this is what makes up good health in a way. Now let's start with air. So in Nigeria, commonly, we generate like 2.5 million tons of plastics waste annually. Now, what happens to this plastic waste? Just 12% is recycled. About 40% of it is burned. People just gather and then they set fire. So what are they doing? Polluting the air. So when you breathe in, you are at risk of respiratory illness, cardiovascular diseases. Very common. Now when you come to food, when lots of this plastic dump on the land, the common one, the pure water bag, when the rains come and the wind blows, it blows everywhere, on the soil, fertile land, and everywhere. So when the farmers farm, blocks the soil, contributes to soil infertility, and so that is also impacting health, right? Yeah. Because without good food, you don't have good health. The same for water. We need water, right? Now, this is a very common one. A lot of us take water from plastic bottles, and the common advice is don't take water when it's hot, because there are some chemicals that leach into the water. Okay. For example, bisphenol, they are two common chemicals, and they are responsible for so many things. They also affect your liver. They also are carcinogenic, and they also affect especially young people at puberty level, and for most men it also affects or impacts on low sperm count. So these are some of the ways plastics impact us. But even let's look at water for a community, for example. We have so many communities that depends on streams for water. And so when it rains and it washes everything to the stream, and you go to fetch water, what do you see? Lots of plastic waste, and you cannot use that kind of water for domestic use and for any other thing.
Now, we've been talking about recycling. You mentioned that a couple of times. Now, how effective are current plastic recycling methods, and what innovations are needed to improve them?
In Nigeria, if we are producing 2.5 million tons annually, and just 12% is recycled, it simply means we are not doing enough, right? We are even producing more than our capacity to recycle, is common. So we need like 5 steps, to these issues. First is research. We need to improve on our research on recycling. Now, first, we'll start with the consumer. How do we dispose of our plastic waste? In most developed countries, and even within African countries, every household have 3 waste bins. One is for organic waste, one for plastic waste, and there could even be 4, one for metals, and then the other one for waste dump. Those are the ones they cannot recycle. So when these collectors come, the guys are coming to take only plastics, right? So recycling starts right from the home. Now, at the moment, when these guys come, they carry everything, right? Move everything together. So when they get to the dump site, it becomes very difficult to separate waste segregation. And that's why recycling in our own environment is very, very difficult. But then, scientifically, there are a lot of research going on, especially with artificial intelligence, so that we can easily segregate this waste and all. But it requires some level of investment. It's not something you just wish for, So, but generally, the solution, like I keep saying, to plastics is to produce biodegradable plastics, and all of this can come through the product of research. At the moment, nanotechnology is trying as much as possible to convert like cardboards into very strong, reusable materials. You can easily use, like the paper bag, right?
Yeah.
And we have lots of paper bags that are strong. So, but research is trying to make it stronger and water resistant, what the plastic offers. And that's what those bags cannot. So once you're able to do that, everyone will know that this is a better option. We know it's a better option.
Dr. Michael, let's take a short break here. This is Frontiers, and we're taking a look at plastic pollution and its effect on daily living. So staying tuned. The discussion continues. Now, Doctor, before we went on break, you spoke about the 3 R's and your own R being the 4th: reduce, reuse, recycle, and refuse.
Yeah.
Now, what are some successful strategies for reducing plastic use and waste, and how can they be scaled up?
The simplest and the cheapest one is awareness creation. We need to create awareness. Part of what you are doing on this program today. So imagine that the entire country is talking about the dangers of plastic waste and educating our people on the need to move away from single-use plastics. It will go a long way, in stopping or hurting this menace. The kind of awareness that COVID-19 created, that is the kind of awareness we need on this problem. Now, secondly, would be legislations. And in our country, we don't like things that are taxed. So if you put a tax on the use of plastics, you will see when somebody is coming to your shop to buy things, you will see them with good bags, because they don't want to pay more. And that's exactly what happens to other countries, in other countries as well. When you go to buy things, if you don't come with a bag, they sell the bag for you, and it's expensive. So you always want to take it back. Then we need to find a solution to pure water. I think we are one of the countries in the world, although I know, that sell water in sachet bag. For me, there is no much difference between the water bottle and the sachet bag, because that is so difficult to recycle. It's difficult to control. But the water bottle is also bad, but at least you see these women going around picking it, So it is worse than that one. And then the plastic bags and all. So for me, these two are very important. But of course, we also need to come up with our own solutions. We have bags that our parents were using before plastic came. The jute bag, even before now, they pack rice in those bags. They are reusable material. they are biodegradable, you know. So we need to go back into those kind of materials.
Now, how does plastic pollution intersect with other environmental issues, you know, issues like climate change, you know, or biodiversity loss?
Yes, biodiversity loss is of great importance to us. We live in an ecosystem, and when there is an imbalance within the ecosystem, it impacts and affects all of us all. At the moment, we are complaining about the heat wave. We see how long the heat wave has been this year. The rainy season has now come. Ordinarily, by now we should be in the rainy season, but you know, it's neither here or there, and it's all across the country. So it clearly tells you that there is something happening within the environment. There is environmental change, and so we shouldn't make it worse. So plastic waste impacts biodiversity. I spoke about this earlier, especially the marine ecosystem. The marine ecosystem, because nearly all the plastic we dump, when there's runoff, where do they go? To the rivers. From the small rivers into, like in Nigeria, everything goes to River Niger, River Benue, and then it flows into the Atlantic Ocean. What is it doing? Sedimentation, you know, is blocking the waterways, making, you know, trapping more sand. So you have lots of sand covering the rivers, and then all of it also go into the sea. In the sea is not just fish. We also have some plant life, which are very important for carbon sequestration, but plastic is destroying and killing them. So biodiversity is key, it's being impacted. Climate change is another one. So from the production of plastics, because plastic is made from where? Petroleum products. So from the production, energy is used. So there is emission going out into the atmosphere. So greenhouse gas is released. When we burn plastic, which is a very common solution in many countries, including Nigeria, we just gather and then we burn. What are we releasing into the atmosphere? Greenhouse gases, and which are major contributors to climate change we are experiencing today.
It's been very, very insightful, you know, and educating talking to you, Doctor. Thank you so much for sharing your thought with us on the program Frontiers.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. The focus of this edition of Frontiers is plastic pollution and its effects on daily living. And our guest was Dr. Michael Terungwa David, an environmental advocate and Africa Regional Coordinator, Citizens Climate International. Thank you for your time. My name is Frama Panyi.